funnily, I don't know if that's a word. Is that a word?
No.
Okay. Right. It's made up now. This ties into my message really well. So, quick little backstory. Tuesday, I was helping with a church event, and Justin gives me a call, and he's like, hey, dude, I have probably the weirdest intern request known to man. And he's given me some pretty weird ones, but this one was just downright, like in my head, I was like, oh, this dude's gonna make me do something so weird, so uncomfortable, something I don't want to do. So he calls me, he's like, hey, my pants are sagging hard right now. Like, y'all know you know how it be when your pants they just keep sagging. Like, you trying to walk around and they're just, like, you can't do anything about it. So Justin was like, hey, I need a belt. I was like, okay, do you want me to, like, get one from my house? He was like, no, just go grab one from my house. I was like, okay, I can do that. Swing by his house, skip over the part where I have to break into his house. We'll come back to that later, maybe not. I get his belt. I also get him a hat because he's like, hey, my hair's blowing everywhere. I gotta look nice, all this stuff. And so I get out there, and I'm there maybe less than 5 minutes, and I absolutely eat it in a hole, and my ankle just completely gives way on me. I did not have any firm foundation there. I'm gonna go back for that pine straw. That pine straw's got it coming, and so now I'm here. But I also have another story I hope you guys are going to find a little bit funny because I got actual photo evidence of it. So there was a couple of us here at the church one night, and we were playing around on those hoverboards, those little, some people call them swagways, some people call them hoverboards. So you can't see it, but I'm on one, and Buddy right here, he throws a ball at the wall on the complete opposite side of the room. And what ends up happening is the ball ricochets back off and comes under my board, and I eat it. And that's me in the process of falling.
Yeah.
So no harm, no foul. Nobody was intending to do anything like that. But it's just an illustration of sometimes we can get physically tripped up. Whether it's pine straw, whether it's a hoverboard and a random thrown ball, we can get tripped up easily in life. And sometimes, like I knew Carson wasn't trying to trip me up. But sometimes in life, we get tripped up spiritually. We get tripped up emotionally. And that's hard to navigate. It's hard to understand, hey, what am I supposed to do in these situations where I don't fully understand why this person's tripping me up or why God is calling this person into my life. So a lot of the time, people are calling us to make bad influences, make bad choices, do things that are not true to us, and do things that we just fully don't agree with. They can make us question our faith. They can make us pursue goals that we didn't think we'd have and we might not actually be passionate about. They can completely change our mindset on how we do things, and it can take us away from what God has planned for us. So even in the face of the enemy, because each day the enemy is going to try to attack you. They're going to try to force things onto you that you're not comfortable with. What they're going to do is each time that happens, you have to stand firm because God is your foundation. In Ephesians 6, verse 13 says, stand firm in God with his whole armor. We're going to come back to that. Tonight we're going to be reading out of Ephesians 6, verses 10 through 20. We'll get to that in a second. But the power in that is that we can stand firm knowing that we have God. But also, the message for tonight is that we can stand strong together. And what that means is we can have godly friends around us that help us stay strong and stand firm. So the first point that I want you guys to kind of encapsulate is you have to have faith to have God. If you don't have faith, you don't have God. And so when we're facing all these different challenges, we as humans are imperfect. Life is unpredictable. We can't choose what happens each and every single day. We're given each and every single day with a grain of salt, and we take with it what we will. But whenever we surround ourselves with people who are big in their faith, who are big with God, it allows us to open up to them. It allows us to be more true to who we are. And it allows us to stand up against the enemy even stronger than before. So you see, we need godly friends to lift us up. We need godly friends to stand among us, because when the enemy comes running at us, we need people to have our back. We need people in line with us. If you think about it, if you're going to battle, do you want to be the only person in the front line? Is that a logical thing to do to try to win a war? I would put my money on no. I would want to be a part of that army. Maybe if it's Justin leading it, I might be a part of it. He's doing like a whole Braveheart type thing, but I don't know about that. So the biggest thing is understanding that, look, we are going to face challenges. We're going to face hardships, but we have to surround ourselves with the people that will help us the most in those hardships. See, you don't have to ever battle or face a hardship alone. Because of what God has done for us and and what he has sacrificed through Jesus for us, we can surround ourselves with people that truly care about us, truly want the best for us, and truly can drive us to who we really want to be. So in Ephesians 6, 10 through 20, Paul is talking about this armor that we wear, this armor that protects us from the enemy. So in short, the armor that's listed is the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. So first, with the belt of truth, a belt, kind of like referring back to what Justin, when you don't have a belt, your pants are going to sag. So the belt is what keeps you, it's what holds something else together. It's assisting in something. See, we need truth in every single one of these other elements of armor, or each element isn't going to stand alone. We need truth in righteousness. We need truth in peace. If we don't fully understand what God's truth is, we'll never understand what God's righteousness is, what God's peace is, all these different things. With the breastplate of righteousness, we have to be truthful in our morality and who we are and morally and what we stand for. If we don't stand for the right things in life, we're going to surround ourselves with the wrong people, and we're going to end up in places that we don't want to be and we didn't expect ourselves to be in. With the shoes of peace, it allows you to literally tread through the enemy. It allows you to tread through turmoil and issues. And it allows you to keep God's peace within you while you tread through those issues and those hard times. With the shield of faith, it allows you to protect yourself from the enemy's arrows, the enemy's words. The shield of faith allows you to put it up in front of yourself and protect yourself from whatever enemy is coming at you and whatever the enemy has for you. You know that God's faith has your protection. You have the helmet of salvation. The helmet is super important because it protects the mind, it protects the brain. And with the helmet of salvation, it allows God to protect the wisdom that he wants to instill in us. He allows it to protect us from the enemy and their words and those getting into our heads and allowing it to deteriorate and attack us and make us feel bad about ourselves. And finally, we have the sword of the Spirit. And the sword of the Spirit is the unique one because it's, if you notice, it's the only offensive weapon out of all of those. The rest are defensive. With the sword of the Spirit, it allows you to be on the offensive against the enemy. If you can't be on the offensive against the enemy, you're going to constantly be being pushed back. But with the sword of the Spirit, the Lord's Spirit lives in each and every single one of us. The resurrected Spirit of Jesus Christ is in each and every single one of us. And we can use that as a battle against the enemy. We can use that as our stronghold against the enemy because we know that whatever the enemy throws at me, I have the Spirit of Jesus Christ in me, and I know that nothing will take that away from me. See, Paul teaches us about each of these pieces of armor because in life, it can get really stressful, it can get really unpredictable, and we can toss these pieces of armor to the side. We might think, oh, I've got peace under control in my life. I don't need the shoes of peace. Oh, I've got truth in control of my life. I can just throw out the belt of truth. You see, whenever we try to take control over whatever we think we have control of in this life, we begin to drift farther away from God. We begin to drift away from his armor and his protection for us. Whenever we do that, it just becomes this vicious cycle of, I believe I have control over my life, and I believe that I control each and every single outcome, and I can plan these things out, and that's not how God intended it for you and me. God intended hardships, God intended mystery, God intended all these things in our lives because it helps us grow, it helps us become who we're meant to be. So when Paul's talking about this, if you were going to go into battle, think about it. If you had an army of people with just helmets and swords, I don't think you're going to make it very far. Like, unless you got some like Gerard Butler 300 type stuff, you're not doing it. And so you make yourself so vulnerable when you do that. When you head out to the enemy and you think, oh, I can throw all this out and all I need is the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit and I'm okay. No, you become so vulnerable in that moment and in those times that the enemy can just infiltrate and immediately take over, and it just sucks. It really does, because we deal with anxiety and depression and all these different things that the enemy tries to throw at us because it's what the enemy wants to do to us. It's what they're like, I don't deal with that. He's trying to push us farther and farther away from God, and that's what we have to fight against. You see, if you were trying to win a battle, you got a helmet and sword, you're not going to win. But the beautiful thing about Jesus and God and what he has in store for us is he's won every battle that's ever been in our lives. Every battle that's already passed, every battle to come. And we're on the winning side. So we should rejoice in that. We should be so exuberant and happy in that idea and that fact, because we know that whatever the enemy throws at us, however challenging it is, we don't have to give up, because we know that God has won it for us. If we want to stand strong together, we have to surround ourselves with people that are going to equip that armor with us. See, you can't surround yourself with people if you have the full body of armor, but you have friends that are only wearing 2 or 3 pieces. Your friends are going to get led astray. They're going to get led towards the enemy. And that's not what you want for your friends, because not only do you want godly friends around you, you want to be able to be that godly friend. I know that in my life, I've got a lot of friends that I would consider godly. But I also have had a lot of friends that have shifted out of my life because they thought that, I've got control of these elements, I've got control of this, and they gave up on God because they believed that they had enough control of their life. And so it's difficult, because we don't want to lose these friendships, but at the same time, we want to be able to experience God with each other, because there's no feeling. It's like that feeling when you're at camp. It's just bliss, and there's nothing else you have to worry about except making connections with the people around you. And so whenever we come back to reality and we have to face that, it's difficult, because we don't know what our friends are going to do and how they're going to react when the situation doesn't go their way. A really big thing that's always stuck with me is the idea of our expectation and God's expectation. Our expectation is something of this world. It's something that we find to be helpful for us, ourselves personally. It's a selfish idea. But with God expectations, they're so divine, they're so much bigger than ourselves, they're so much bigger and better, that we have to be able to have faith in those moments. We have to be able to stand strong in those moments, because God's got a plan for us. We just have to be willing to accept that, hey, this plan might not be exactly what I wanted, but it's exactly what God wanted. And so it's difficult. But the biggest thing I want you guys to take away from this is that you can stand strong. You can stand strong together. And there's even a way to stand strong whenever you guys aren't physically together, because that's difficult, especially in this time and this year, especially with quarantine. It's been difficult to interact with each other. We've had all social distance. And so prayer is a big way to have somebody's back in battle, even if you're not right there with them. Tuesday, the event I was talking about, we were having a prayer vigil for an individual who we've just been lifting up to the Lord for healing. And it's amazing to see just the community come together and pray for that individual and be able to lift him up and pray for healing and wisdom and peace and comfort in this time. And that's what we need to do for our friends. That's what we need to do for each other, because that's what's going to keep us in line with each other, and that's what's going to keep us from straying too far away from our godly friendships and our godly relationships. So the big idea, I've been running this through my head, and as I've been preparing this message, and I'm like, what's the big idea? I've been like, what is this one thing I want you guys to take away? And through it all, the biggest thing that I've found myself questioning, but also standing firm in, is don't let your vulnerability define you. Don't let what you're scared of, don't let what you're vulnerable about scare you. Don't let it define you. Don't let it create this pattern in your life where you have to lead this way or lead that way, simply because you're scared of what the outcome might be. You're scared of what people might say about it. See, I see strength and weaknesses, but then I see vulnerability as a completely separate thing. Vulnerability, you might be super, super great at something. You might be an amazing artist, but you're afraid of the backlash of other people because people might not understand your art. They might not appreciate what you're doing on a canvas. And that vulnerability pushes you away from your craft. That vulnerability allows you to follow down a path that might not be your passion and end up putting you in a spot in life where you feel like, man, I feel like God was really calling me to do that, but I allowed the enemy to make me vulnerable. I allowed them to attack me and to make me feel like, hey, I'm not good enough for this. And so, when we're vulnerable, especially going back to that passage of scripture about the armor, each of those pieces of armor is super significant, but the one big thing is there's no piece of armor to protect your back. There's no piece of armor that protects you from behind. Because when Paul was writing this, he intended that you have people that have your back. You don't need a piece of armor behind you. You have godly friends who have your back. They protect you. You think about it in a war. Your back is normally to your allies. Now, wars can get messy really quickly. And if you don't have somebody watching behind you, you're vulnerable. And so we have to be confident in the ability of each and every single one of us to have someone else's back and know we've got friends that will have our backs. See, we're all a part of God's family. Each and every single one of us in this room, each and every single individual outside of this room. If you've accepted Jesus or not, you're a part of God's family, and God wants to invite you into his family. And the amazing thing is that in God's family, you can share whatever you need to share. It's so difficult, especially in this generation, to be vocal about what we're scared about. It's hard to be vocal about what we're challenged with. It's hard to be vocal about how we're feeling on the inside, and a lot of us tend to just bring that in, hold that in, and just eventually it'll explode out, and it's just not healthy for our mentality. It's not healthy for us in general. And when we do that, it's the godly friends that need to be there for you to be vocal too. You have to have friends. You have to be able to step out into your group of friends and be like, hey guys, I'm dealing with this. Can I please have some prayer for this? Could you guys just pray for me tonight and just over the next few days? I'm dealing with this and I'm struggling with it, and I know, God, that you have a bigger plan for me, but at the same time, I don't know where you're leading me. I don't know what this plan is, and I'm struggling big time. And you have friends that can do that for you. But you also have to be that friend. You have to be available. You have to be available to that group of godly friends that you have in your life. If you have a friend struggling and you know they're struggling, you just make yourself available to them. Be like, hey, can I pray for you for anything? Do you want to get some coffee or lunch and just talk? These things make such a big impact on the lives of those who are facing hardships, and the lives of those who are just dealing with challenges that the enemy has thrown at them that you might not have experienced, but they have struggled with for a long time. And it's our job to have our friends back in battle. It's our job to be able to stand up to the enemy, not only for ourselves, but for our friends. So be vocal, be available. I want to challenge each of you guys, especially in how crazy this year has been. I want you guys over the next week, over the next month, even through the rest of the year, find your godly friends. Reach out to them. Make new godly friends. Help people to grow into their relationship with Christ and be able to fully understand what it means to follow Christ and what it means to have a godly group of friends around you. Whenever we surround ourselves with those people, it allows us to feel peace, feel comfort, feel joy. And like I said earlier, when we're facing battles, no matter how difficult they may be, no matter if we're going through hell or high water, we know that when we face those, no matter how difficult they get, no matter how much we want to give up, no matter how much we just want to drop to our knees and say, God, why? God has won those battles for you. Jesus has won those battles for you. So there's no need to give up. God has a plan in that battle. God has a plan for you. You just have to be willing to be like, God, I know this battle is hard. I know that I'm in it, but I trust you. I trust what you have planned for me. We always face problems. We always face enemies. And they try to trip us up. But if you, unlike myself, whenever I was on that pine straw, if you have a firm foundation, you can stand in God's word. You can stand with your godly friends. And you can make a serious difference in a lot of people's lives. If you just stand up, put on your armor, help others put on their armor, and pray. So let's do that right now.